Hello, everybody! Welcome back to the WTF1 YouTube channel. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison, and with me, as ever, is Charlie Williams. Say hi, Charlie.
Hello, hello.
How you doing? How did you find testing now that we're finally done after all 3 days?
It has been a bit of a long 3 days, I'm not gonna lie.
It has.
But it's been enjoyable. I have really enjoyed it. It was a little bit less um entertaining, I say, than last year, but it was still enjoyable.
I mean, is anybody really going out of their way to watch testing for entertainment reasons? I think people that are going out of their way for that, I think that's a little bit hopeful, if I'm honest. But
You got to find the entertainment in everything in
that's
life.
true. That is true. That is very much true. So yeah, we can make some entertainment out of this, and that's what we're planning to do right now by going through some of the winners and losers and what we thought of the state of testing and the state of the field, team by team. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go down and up through the grid from last year's reverse championship order, team by team. Talk a little bit about their test and whether we thought it was good, whether we thought it was bad, whether we think they're a winner of the test or a loser. Just generally how you feel about each team as we go on. So yeah, let's get into it straight away. So let's go to last year's team that were bottom of the constructors championship. Let's go to Williams first and foremost. So Charlie, what did you make of Williams?
On track, I think they've looked pretty good. They've had a few good track times, which I know we have to take with a grain of salt, but they've been pretty reliable. They've done a good amount of laps. They look like they've improved slightly from last year. So if they could even just get that little bit closer to the midfield, I think that would be really great. Alex said that they've still got some work to do, but everyone seems pretty positive down at Williams.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I'd say they're a winner. I think it would have to be pretty bad for them to call them a loser after
Yeah.
being bottom of the standings last year. But they were largely pretty reliable. They got a good amount of laps sorted out. Again, no real liability problems. I think the problem was they revealed their hand a little bit too early in terms of pace. They did a lot of softer tire runs earlier on to get themselves up the board. And I think by the end of day 3, once we'd seen more teams show off something closer to full speed with a lot of C4, C5, really soft tyre runs, I think it exposed them a little bit, but we kind of expected Williams down the bottom anyway, so I don't think there's anything, too bad to write home about. I'll give them a thumbs up on that one. I would call them a winner for the test overall. Next up, we have Alpha Tauri. This is a weird one, Charlie. I think they were quite anonymous for most of this test. I don't know, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, they had a really positive first day of a first day of testing, and then the team managed to get a real heavy workload on the second day. But they've kind of they've been there, but not really. They've got through all the programs they wanted to get through, but as far as actual car development, I'm not sure they really know where they are either. They've had some positive lap times, again, can't really look into them, but also both Yuki and Nick have both been either up in the top 5 or also down at the bottom.
Yeah, it's a little bit erratic. Yeah, I'd say I would. I'm not sure if I want to call them a winner or a loser. I would say the fact that there was nothing newsworthy, if anything, they've been overshadowed by the team selling rumors that hit the media a couple of hours ago, which is probably going to overshadow anything they've done here. But I would still probably say they're a winner. Sometimes no news is good news regarding a Formula One team. And again, Alpha were pretty bad last year, to say the least. The fact they got plenty of laps under their belt and a little bit of late pace from Tsunoda at the end is probably a good sign overall. That's how I look at it anyway. But again, I think all of their tests is just going to pale into insignificance given today's news. But I have to wait and see how those rumours are handled. Let's go to Haas. Haas next up here, 8th from last year. How do you feel about Haas, Charlie?
I'm gonna go winner, and I actually think they're one of the biggest winners for me.
Really?
As well. Okay. Yeah, I mean, take away the top 3. Let's not even put them into the equation. But they haven't really seemed to struggle. They've had quite a relaxed atmosphere in the garage. Everyone seems quite positive. They've been put on the list of the fourth, fighting for fourth kind of teams. So I think that could be huge for Haas. If they've got this right, then I'll be very impressed.
I do worry a little bit for Haas, if for no other reason of they tend to start their seasons very well, but then the development race is what cripples them down the road. So we've seen this story before with Haas where they come out with a really good car to start the year, and then they fade as the year goes on. I'm not sure if I want to fall into that honey trap again, but I'm probably going to say they're a winner. I think their pace at the end of the test was pretty good. I think K-Mag put some good laps together. I think they could be solidly in the midfield, at least to start off the year. I think they could fade as the year goes on again. That is my worry, because quite a few teams did that last year. They started out strong and then just faded as the year went on. This is going to be an interesting one. Next up, we've got Aston Martin. What do you reckon of Aston Martin, Charlie?
So, I said about Haas, they were like my most winner. Aston Martin are just above that, I think, for me. They have definitely made the most gains. I think they look quick. There is actually quite a lot of hype around them. These 3 days of testing have definitely proved that they are winners. They've caught the eye of several drivers and several other teams. They've been singled out as like the midfield team to watch. I mean, aside from the issues 9 minutes in on day one, they've had a pretty flawless 3 days. I'm sure that Lance Stroll has probably sat at home very sad, hoping that he'd get into his AMR 23.
Well, given his wrist injuries, he's probably not going to be on his phone very much, bless him. But
hey, you can have a TV.
Why not? Why not? But no, I completely agree. I think they might be the biggest winner of the entire test. I know they started out rough with the electronics failure on day one. That was just, 10 minutes into the test, first lap. So they lost a bit of time there, but they've clearly got something here. They look rock solid. Alonso was already pushing the boundaries of the car. Obviously, he got most of the testing time post-Stroll injury, but I think they were pushing. Their lap times were very solid on comparable rubber. I think they could be front of the midfield train. I think them in fourth, is a real genuine possibility, which, given they were 7th last year, is a really, really good sign for Aston Martin that they've made some genuine progress. I think maybe my biggest winner of the test overall. So I'm very optimistic about Aston Martin. But then again, you would say that given all the old Sebastian Vettel jokes I used to go through. They get a good car just as Fernando Alonso rolls up. Curse thee.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Alfa Romeo, and this is an interesting one, Charlie. What do you think of Alfa Romeo?
So from what I've seen, I don't actually think that they've improved that much more than last year. They've been getting a good amount of laps throughout the 3 days. They look okay. To be honest, I don't think there's going to be that much change. If you remember, they started the season fairly strong, and then they were one of the ones that just slowly fell down as the season went on. So I guess their goal for this year would really just be to be staying there with the rest of the midfield. Like, let's not have that drop. And they look slightly stronger, but I just don't think it's quite there.
They were probably the biggest examples of a team that started really well and dropped off as the year went on. And they liked a vanity run. I mean, Zhou Guanyu was the fastest man overall on day 2, but it was on a C5 tyre, the softest tyre available, which didn't get an awful lot of running overall. A couple of failures as well. A power unit died at the end of day 2. Valtteri Bottas's car died towards the middle of day 3, so there is some reliability concerns. Maybe the most unreliable team out there. So I might actually put them down as a partial loser, given that their test probably just didn't go to plan in terms of those failures, but the pace might be all right. We'll have to wait and see how that goes down on Friday once we actually get some hardcore running in. But I'm a bit concerned about Alfa Romeo because towards the end of last year, they were really, really poor. But again, we'll have to wait and see. This is going to be an interesting one. Charlie, talk about your beloved McLaren.
Oh, do I have to?
Yes, you do.
This really hurts to say, but I'm going to call them out as losers right now. Don't even get me started with this whole ordeal. I'm trying to remain somewhat positive, but I'm struggling right now. I know this shouldn't come as a shock because McLaren have made it quite clear that they weren't going to improve this year, and it'd be most likely towards 2025 to be right back at the top. But this season, I can't even see them fighting for 4th. I can't even see them like in 5th at this moment in time. And I mean, missing your targets for the year, admitting to it, and then spending most of your time in the garage is not the way to do an F1 test.
Yeah, just Yeah, they're probably the biggest loser of the entire test for me. I'm deeply concerned about McLaren and where they're at. They should be challenging for fourth this year, and it's if anything, it's gone the opposite way. A lot of brake cooling issues, a lot of they had to deconstruct the brake ducts during day 3. A lot of time in the garage, a lot of struggles, not a lot of actual run time. I mean, when Lando Norris is in the back looking miserable for large chunks of the test, and he has to amuse himself by jumping over a barricade to kill time. It's not a good vibe coming out of that McLaren camp. As you said, Zach Brown was very down on the team from the launch, saying that they'd missed targets. This is going to be a bit of a down year. They said they want to eventually be in the top 4, but that's clearly an indicator to me that they're not where they want to be, and I think they could be the biggest slippers in the field so far in terms of where they are relative to the end of last year. So I would put them down as a big loser on that one.
Right, Dre.
No, I have no mercy on McLaren. You know me, Charlie. Like I'm an equal opportunity hater. Next up, we've got Alpine. Now, I think they had quite a quiet test, Charlie, but I think low key, I think they're doing all right. What do you feel about them?
Oh, see, I'm not sure. I think like the vibe check in that garage, great. Everyone in the team, drivers, again, all seem really happy with the car. There's a general buzz of optimism, but I don't think I've seen anything that has wowed me yet. I don't think I've seen like that optimism be put out on track. And I mean, other teams have said that they think they're best of the rest, but it feels like everybody's best of the rest this year, apart from that team that's saying it. So I think I need to see more to actually judge this one. I'm going to put them as like an averager.
An averager. We've invented a third way. We couldn't just stick to winners and losers. We had to have a third option in there. I would put them down as a partial winner. I think they're hiding something. There is rumours there is going to be an upgrade package due for the actual race next week in Bahrain. I think they were just using these 3 days to set a benchmark, just to get a good baseline of where they're at. None of their times particularly leapt off the page, but I did see their race pace, and it does look pretty solid. I think they're going to be right in there as the number 4 team again with Aston Martin and Alpine, and that should be a realistic goal for them. If they can try and maybe cut the gap to the top 3, that would be a great season for Alpine. If they're still in P4, they're not going to get too many complaints from anybody in the field. So sometimes, like I said, sometimes I think no news is good news, and I think they're going to be rolling along just fine. Let's get into the big 3, and first up, Mercedes. That beautiful looking Mercedes. What do you make of Mercedes, Charlie?
I want to believe that they've got it all together this year and they're actually just playing one huge April Fools. I want to believe that they are sandbagging like massively. But part of me doesn't want to get my hopes up too much. We've seen like some good laps from George like this morning, but again they were on the C5s, so the soft tires. He could have had like it could have been a low fuel run. It has looked better today, on par with the other cars, I'd say. And yesterday it just looked so hard to handle. Like, and I hope they're not giving us their full potential yet.
It looks twitchy. It looks like a car that snaps out a lot on corner exit. I saw the amount of replays we had of Hamilton or Russell saving saving the car as the rear slides out did give me a little bit of concern that they might have a fast car, but maybe not a particularly controllable one. And that could be a worry when we actually get into race trim. Their pace is okay. I don't think it's outstanding by any stretch of the imagination. I would say maybe a slight thumbs down once you throw in the hydraulics failure they had at the end of day 2, which didn't exactly... I saw the pictures of them all gathered around in a circle, not quite sure what was going on there. So a small amount of concern for Mercs, hopefully nothing too catastrophic. Ferrari. What do you reckon on Ferrari?
They're winners for me. I think, Charles has said that this car is so much less draggy than last season's, and you can see it as well. Both of them look a lot more comfortable in the car than last year. I think they're still trying to find the exact setups, especially for Charles. I know that he said that. But both drivers have done a good amount of laps. They've done good times. And I think if there has been any little issues, they've just been like, little teething issues. They look very strong.
I think they look fine. I think their pace overall is good. I think the car is reliable. Honestly, this is exactly the sort of test that Ferrari needed. a quiet test where they mind their own business, put some good lap times down, some good mileage down, and not draw any headlines after the way last season was a complete disaster for them, strategically, operationally, you name it. So sometimes, like I said, no news is good news, and I think for Ferrari, I think that absolutely applies here on this one. I think they had a good test. Still concerned about the tyre wear on longer runs, but I still think they have a very fast race car, and that is half the battle. And that was the story of Ferrari last year, to be honest. Should we get Red Bull out of the way now and then just go home? Because I think I suspect that Red Bull are looking ominously good here. But Charlie, are you going to back up what I'm saying here?
Of course, they are absolute winners. Do I need to say anything else? I feel like they've just got everything right. Again, the RB19 is basically an evolution of what they already had. There are some small differences, like the wings and the nose is a lot flatter and longer, but it just seems to have worked even better than it already was. I'm just preparing myself for another Red Bull domination this season.
I do fear that it's going to be heading the same way as last year. That car looks ominous. It looks fast. It looks smooth. Reliability was good. Verstappen was putting down some very, very fast lap times. I think he was... At one point, he was running third on day 2 with a time on a C0 tire, which is just ridiculous. And whatever you saw from Perez, you can probably add and take off another 3 attempts, I should say, for when Verstappen gets in the car, because we know he's a bit faster than Checo. So that I don't think Red Bull have shown anywhere near their full hand, which is a terrifying thought for the rest of the field. So just before we get out of here, let's rank these teams on where we think they are. This is always going to be a little bit of a fun game to see where we think the field is at, because testing never quite reveals everything. But we thought it would be a fun laugh anyway. So, Charlie, how have you got them ranking right now?
I'm so bad at predicting. Bad at it.
That's part of the fun.
Are we going to go from the bottom up? Did you say?
Let's go 10. Let's go 10-1.
You want me to literally just reel them all?
Yeah, reel them off.
Right. I think Williams.
Yep.
Alfa Tauri, Alfa Romeo, McLaren.
Wow.
Alpine, Haas, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull.
So you've got Haas as high as 5th. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. That midfield is a bit up and down. I think that's quite cool. I've got it. Williams 10, Alfa Tauri 9, Alfa Romeo 8, Haas 7. I'm still not fully convinced on them. McLaren 6th. I was a bit safer on McLaren. I think they'll eventually get it together. Alpine 5th, Aston Martin 4th. So that's a big jump up for Aston Martin. Merckx 3rd, Ferrari 2nd, and I think Red Bull top of the pile for me on that one. I think the top 3 are going to be pretty much as you were. I think the midfield could be very interesting once we get to Bahrain next week. I think that's where a lot of the eyeballs are going to be. But that will do it for our testing review over the last 3 days. Do stick around, subscribe if you enjoyed. We got a lot more coverage coming up in the rundown to Bahrain this time next week. But until then, I've been Dre. She's been Charlie. Until then, thanks for watching. Sayonara.